Hi, you're listening to Day 3 Club, the revamped Cafe 20s. I'm Ankie.
I'm Charmaine.
And I'm Flo, and this is a podcast about being in your 20s.
It's okay to not have everything figured out. We can just take it one day at a time. Hi, everybody. We are back. It's Ankie, Charmaine, and Flo back with our podcast, no longer called Cafe 20s, but Day 3 Club. Our last episode was in February 2021, so that's over a year now, almost a year and a half. We're all in different cities and doing different jobs and in different circles now. And we thought it'd be nice to have a little bit of a catch up. Disclaimer, this is going to be slightly self indulgent. It might be very lengthy. We're not going to do any editing, but it should be
Enjoy.
fun. Yeah,
Mm.
enjoy.
Yes. But before diving into the episode, we first have the hot take of the day, where we usually discuss a mini controversy. Since our overall theme of the day is catching up with old friends, today's hot take is high school reunion. Attend it or skip it?
Ankie, do you want to go first? I know you've been attending plenty of high school reunions.
Every weekend. Yeah, attend it. Why not? You'd be surprised where people's lives have taken them. And it's also a good measurement of your own growth as well, I think. Yeah. What about you guys, Charmaine?
I think I would attend it as well, but I think I like it more when it's a bit more spaced out.
Mm.
Unless it's just with a very close group of friends. I think, like Enki said, it's just a good way to see how far everyone has come and how far I've come too.
Nice. I was expecting different answers. That's why I chose this hot take. Turns out everyone has the same answer. I think I would attend it as well. Uh, yeah, just because I think I was in a good relationship with my high school friends, and it would be good to catch up again and see how everyone is doing. But if let's say it's a university reunion or senior high reunion, then I don't think I would attend it.
All
I think
right.
healthy amounts is okay.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to
That's
do
true.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Enki's
Agree.
nodding, but you do it every weekend.
Yeah, I'm finding the rhythm now. Finding
Okay.
the rhythm. We'll dive into that later. Um, all right, all right. So since we've now done our hot take, which was a not controversial controversy, uh, let's go into the meat of the episode. So, I know you guys have both moved away from Hong Kong now, so please share about your changes and also, yeah, the biggest ones that has happened since the last episode.
For me, I moved to a new country. So I moved from Hong Kong to Malaysia around 3 months ago for my job. So that's the biggest change for me.
How has it been for you?
How's it been for me? I've enjoyed it very much so far. I'm properly living alone. I think I've never really lived alone except for briefly in university, but that was just like at the dorms. This is really different. This is like having a whole apartment to myself. And I mean, Malaysia is still in Asia, but the culture is still very different from Hong Kong. I feel
Mm.
like people here are a lot nicer. Hong Kong people can be quite mean sometimes. I think we're very self-aware about it. So
Mm.
I've enjoyed being in Malaysia so far.
Very nice, very
Mhm.
nice. And Florence, yeah?
I think it has only been a year and 4 months, right? But at the same time, it feels so short, but at the same time, it feels so long. I think there's so many things that has happened. For me, I moved to another country as well, but more specifically, I moved back to my motherland, Indonesia. But having spent like half of my life living overseas, coming back to Indonesia is a bit weird. And this is my first time living in Jakarta as well, right? So I definitely experienced a reverse culture shock. There's a few things, there's good reverse culture shock. There's like not so good reverse culture shock. So one of like the good things that made me feel very surprised about living in Jakarta is everyone here is so friendly and nice. Like going back to your point, Charmaine, about people in Hong Kong, they're like strangers don't hold the door for you, right? But in Indonesia, like strangers hold the door for you. So the first time I came in, I think my first week here, people were holding doors for me, and I was genuinely surprised. I was like, oh my god, this is how people are. Yeah, I was just reminded of like how friendly people here are. So that's quite nice. But then again, there's like not so good things like traffic. There's no public transport. Um, like private transportation like car or bike is a necessity just because public transport here is so bad. So yeah.
Hmm. It's the same in Malaysia. It's terrible. I don't have a car driving license yet, but we know, Flo, you've recently acquired your own car.
Yay.
Congratulations. One step closer to adulthood.
Woo.
Thank you. How about you, Anki?
For me, I'm still in Hong Kong, which is my motherland. And I've kind of found like it's time for me to settle down here and build a life in Hong Kong. It sounds strange, a little bit of context, since this is already the third year back. I mean, third year going on fourth year back in Hong Kong after uni. But I think over the last 2 years, it's always been like, oh, when am I going to move to another country? Or I'm not going to really stay here for long, whether it be for work or for love. So cringy. So yeah. But now I think it's time to sort of start building a community, make more friends, and find a lifestyle that I want, like working out more and finding a balance between maybe family and friends and myself and work that is good for me. So yeah, it's still a new challenge. I think I made this decision maybe 5 months ago now, so January. So yeah, we'll dig into that more in the next questions.
Yeah, I think some people who don't know Anki may think that this is not a big change, but personally, I think us knowing Anki, it's such a huge change, right? It's equally big as moving to a new country because for me and Charmaine, we are someone who like to stay in one place. So moving to a new country is actually the big change. But for Anki, you like to travel around the world, you like to live in a different country and experience different cultures. So having you make that decision to settle down in Hong Kong, that's a very big decision. And it's very interesting how, within that 1 year and 4 months you've now come to this Enki.
Yeah, it's hard. I'm not planning my hypothetical sabbatical so that I can take time away from Hong Kong. But we'll see. We'll see. But yeah, big changes for everyone, and I'm proud
Yeah.
of us. So that's awesome.
Oh, right. So, are there any things you've learned about yourself going through this period of change? And if yes, what did you learn and how did it feel?
Maybe I know, Flo, that you're posing this question, but I almost want to start with you because I guess among the three of us, you're the first one who's taken more managerial responsibility, at least in the professional context. And I understand that you are even able to scold people now. So I want to start there. Do you have any advice for, I don't know, managing a team, or how has your personality changed now that you've actually taken on direct reports in your job?
Mm,
Mm.
yeah, it's quite a challenge to, take my first managerial position, but at the same time, I've learned a lot about myself as well and about how to be a good manager and what it means to be a manager. So, one of the things that I really learned, from my experience being a manager is no matter how smart you are, you can't do anything alone. You can't do everything alone. You need resources. Resources is like the number one key thing that you need to have, and having the right people in your team that really helps. So if let's say you have two people who are equally competent to be a manager, but the manager A has the right team members, has the right resources to lead the team, whereas the let's say manager B, she doesn't have the right she doesn't have the right team, she doesn't have the right people who have the skills that she needs, then like most probably team B or manager B is more likely going to fail, right? Despite her being equally as competent as manager A. So that's one of the huge learning that I've learned. And then also, us being at such a young age, sometimes we have the tendency to think about ourselves first, like, oh, I want to be a good manager, I want to grow in my career. But sometimes I think that I need to learn more about thinking through the organization instead of thinking through myself. So, for example, like if I'm struggling in achieving the targets, the way I think about it shouldn't be why am I not reaching the target, but it should be like what kind of resources do I need from my team, from my company, so that it can help me achieve the targets. So if let's say I don't achieve the targets, it's not a reflection of how bad I am as a manager, but it should be more of a reflection of um, I think my department is not having the right resources that we need. So who can I talk to get that resources, and how can I convince my manager so that we can have those resources? Yeah, so I think those are the two big learnings.
Wow, we can totally see that you have grown into a beautiful flower in the past year. It's amazing. And I guess it's the first time for Charmaine and I to hear Flo share about this side as well. So it's really cool. I actually wanted to ask you, so I know there were some people who were older than you in your team that you were managing. So how did you go about this, and how did you establish credibility among people?
Yeah, I went like a long way to hide my age. I cut my hair so that I look older, and then I dress older, and I try my best to not, give my to share my information like personal identity, like the card, ID card, and things like that. But there just a story about this. I was traveling with one of my team member who's older than me by about, I'd say, 4 years. So then we were, checking in the airport. So he wanted to help me check in. So I gave him his ID card. But I didn't know that in Indonesia, the ID card has your birthday is actually in the ID number. I didn't know about that because in Hong Kong it's just a random number, right? But
Mm.
in Indonesia, your birthday is actually in the numbers. It's a series of long numbers. So I never paid attention. So then he looked at it and then he was like, "Are you born in 1990?" Dude. And then I was so shocked. I was like, no. And then it's like, it's in the ID card. And then that's when I found out. So then I'm like, maybe Jakarta ID card and my city ID card is different. I just like really tried to hide it, but and then he found out. Um, uh, I think what I learned about it is they turned out to be totally fine with my age, and even knowing my age, they actually grow to be more respectful of me. So that was actually a very interesting, something that I didn't expect, instead of
Mm.
looking down on me and saying you're so young, why should I listen to you. But they were actually very respectful, and they keep telling me that at your age I don't think I would be able to do what you did, so we really respect you and we see you as a leader. We don't see you as a manager because you're someone who will do things with us together, and will try to like solve solutions and solve problems together. So um and in the end, I when I gave them a call and tell them that I resigned, um one of my team member actually cried, and I'm like, don't cry, you're making me cry. And
Oh.
then
Oh.
yeah, and then they were so nice. This last Friday was supposed to be my first day in the other job, right, in my new job, and they sent me a WhatsApp text and say, hey, they said that, hey, good luck on your first day. Yeah, so that was really nice, and we grew to become real friends.
Mm. That's
Wow.
really nice. I think I was quite concerned about the age part at certain points. But then hearing my colleagues talk about other like quite senior leaders in the company, they're always like, it's always like with a tone of admiration. Oh, like he's in his mid 30s and he's already at this like MD level or whatever.
Mm.
So that made me feel better. But I wasn't given the choice to hide my age in Malaysia, unfortunately. They literally asked me on my first day at the welcome lunch and I couldn't quite dodge it.
So yeah.
Yeah.
I think um just if let's say you're in that position, right, and you're very scared of revealing your age, um just don't go that far like I did to hide your age. If let's say you need to you need to tell or share your age, then you can share it with pride. Hey, I'm just at this age, but I managed to be at this position. Yeah.
Mm.
Because when my own personal experience, when I tried to hide my age, somehow I felt like I was hiding a part of myself, and it became quite taxing.
Mm.
So looking back, I feel like maybe if I didn't go that far to hide my age, I would have liked my previous job better, maybe.
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah. True, true, true.
Yeah. What about you, Charmaine? What are some things that you've learned about yourself moving to Malaysia, living alone, or all of these new exciting changes for you?
Mm, I will. Okay, I think maybe there's three big changes that's happened now that I think about it. So the Malaysia move was definitely a big one. Living alone was a big one. And changing sort of jobs was a big one too. Um, I think moving to Malaysia, for me, a lot of people might not know this, but moving to Malaysia took a long time for me. I knew in last August I was supposed to move, but then I was only able to move in February or March. So that really dragged it out. And I was so glad to finally arrive. And now that I'm here, I think a lot of the times I get this question of how long do I plan on staying in Malaysia. I think at this point that's not even like a question for me. Like I'm just happy to be here. I'll probably stay here a few years. But sometimes I almost like think back to when I was deciding whether or not to move to Malaysia. I was choosing between a few countries in Southeast Asia, like Cambodia, Philippines. And I remember 2 years ago, for some reason, my heart was really set on Cambodia. So I
Mm.
think there's this urge inside of me to go to all of these different countries. But for now, I'm just happy to be in Malaysia and happy to just settle here and chill here for a few years before deciding where to go next. Yeah.
And
Mm.
Charmaine's Bahasa is so good already.
Tell the
Can you
people
say,
what you know.
yeah, can you say a few words?
Sangat tebal.
Translation, please.
Very
Very,
thick.
very
Oh dear.
thick.
So random.
Yeah, I don't know what my Bahasa teacher is teaching me. Not sure in what scenario I would ever use this.
I think maybe you can use that as a pickup line when you find a guy. It's like sangat tebal.
Does it wouldn't be the same? Can it like translate to that kind of thick?
I think if you say that, they might think that you're telling them that they're fat.
Okay, never mind. Let's not risk it. Yeah. And then over here, because I look like a Chinese Malaysian, so a lot of people would assume I'm local, and then like when they see me, they'll just like blur blur blur, like just speak Bahasa at me, and I would just look very confused. So that's still something I'm trying to adjust to. Yeah. The other day I got told I sounded like a indirectly that I sounded like a banana. So I was in the car with our key account manager, and the key account manager was talking to the customer, and then the customer, like, she put him on speaker. The customer didn't know I was in the car, so he was like, "Oh, who's this Charmaine that joined your team recently? By the way, like, I was on the phone with her, and she sounds like a banana." So yeah, I feel like I need
What's a
to tell,
banana?
like someone who's yellow on the outside but white on the inside. So just from the way I sound.
Oh my goodness.
uh,
What?
yeah.
But is there a negative connotation to it, or it's just like a banana?
I don't know. I feel like they would almost like want someone to, speak with a Malaysian accent if they're from Malaysia, because it's
Mm.
like you're almost proud of your culture in a way. But I,
Mm,
I think I have an excuse just because I'm not from Malaysia.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
At least it
Mm.
makes you memorable.
To some
Like
extent,
banana.
maybe I should like tap into that foreigner's privilege a little bit more here. I don't know if Flo, if you ever felt this in Hong Kong, but I think in Hong Kong, if you're a certain type of foreigner, like an expat, then it almost gives you like some free passes in life.
Yes, that's very right. That's very true. So you can definitely tap into it. Maybe like when you introduce yourself, you can also say that, hey, I just moved from Hong Kong, blah, 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 blah. And
Mm.
then they would be like, oh, okay, she's not from here. Because your name is also very Malaysian, I think.
Yeah, but they
You
always
can pass as
they
Malaysian.
they always misread it as chairman. So I've missed a few emails and like tender interviews because they sent it to chairman dot
Oh
my
Oh
dear.
my
name.
God.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe look into adding that E potentially.
It's a part of my identity now.
Oh, yes.
Or not.
Yeah, so that's been the Malaysian move. Living alone. I don't know how Flo is doing living alone, but I've really enjoyed it so far. I think it gives a lot of freedom in some ways. Like I can just put on whatever podcast or music I want when I'm cooking, and I have a lot of space to exercise, like without worrying like my parents walking past and like what is Charmaine doing? So it's been very nice. But how has it been for you so far, Flo?
I think it's been nice, but again, I've been used to living alone, but not alone in a sense where, I have the whole apartment to myself. So again, I think you're right, this is quite new. Um, it's nice because again, the freedom, you can just do
Mm,
anything. You don't have to care about, where you put things and
mm,
whether you are mm, messy or clean. But then sometimes it does get a bit lonely because I'm also doing work from home, right? So it's like you'll be home the whole day, but weekends will come and then you will go out with your friends and your loved ones, so
mm.
that's fine.
Okay.
Speaking
Maybe
of
this.
loved ones,
Okay. Yes, Ankie.
how's that going for you, Flo?
How's that going for you, Anki? Actually, Anki is the crazy one because when we did the last episode about relationship, I think it was our episode 3. You were only together with your boyfriend for like around 2 years, was it?
And
Yeah,
Flo didn't have a boyfriend
And
back then.
yeah, and now it's been how long? How long is it for, how long have you been with this boyfriend of yours?
almost 4 years, 3 years and 9 months. Yeah,
See?
Wow.
Oh, that's like crazy.
it's a long journey. Yeah, because he's in Switzerland, so we've seen each other once a year for the past 3 years. But thankfully, or not thankfully, due to getting COVID, joining the Omicron club when I was in Switzerland, I stayed there for 2 months. So
Mm.
it was quite helpful, I think, in terms of building the relationship. Yeah, but less about me, more about Flo.
You're I think when we had that last episode of our relationship, I was still talking about, I was still single, I was still dating around, don't really know what I was looking for in a partner. But now I'm in a happy relationship with my boyfriend of more than a year now. So yeah, that's
Wow.
crazy.
Time flies. So much has
Yes.
changed.
Yeah, that's why it's like 1 year and 4 months feel so short, but at the same time feel so long because there's been so many changes.
Mm,
Yeah. I think we were like re-listening to our old podcasts and then we realized so much has changed and that's why we decided to do this.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Crazy.
Even if we don't get any viewers, it's just nice to do this to catch up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
How about you, Charmaine? I heard you've been mingling.
That sounds like such a creepy auntie.
Yeah. I can see Flo in 10 years talking to her nieces and nephews. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
House of mingling.
Yeah, because I think since I've moved to Malaysia, I'm still trying to just meet more people because I don't have a lot, there's not a lot of Hong Kong people here that's my age, and a lot of my friends are from work. So naturally, dating apps are quite a nice place to meet people.
What's with the British accent?
Yeah, reverts
I
to
don't know. It's my
accent.
coping mechanism. I'm so uncomfortable. So I did actually I've only went on 2 dates since I've came to Malaysia. I just things have gotten a bit busier lately, and I think planning for dates, like you need to like chat to people on the weekday evenings, then you make plans for the weekend. But I've been quite busy on the weekdays lately, so I haven't been able to do that. But I finally met people from dating apps. The first two were a little bit meh, but I think my work will slow down a little bit in the next month, so we will see.
Yay!
Yay.
Mhm.
That's exciting. I'm sure you'll meet lots of interesting people.
Mm.
Whether or
Mm.
not they're the love of your life is one thing, but at least you get to know and integrate into the local community a little better. I guess.
Oh, just to share on the whole retirement. Sorry, this is a bit of a jump, is it?
No, please
Retirement.
continue.
Retirement. So I went volunteering at a retirement home a couple of weeks ago, and just to let you know the market rate as I continue my market research. So on the higher end of retire homes in Malaysia, the monthly rate is around 6,000 ringgit, and this would get you like a single room and like a caretaker. Let me try to convert that to maybe US dollars.
Yeah. What does the package for a high-end elderly home include? Just asking for a friend.
So I just converted it, by the way. It's around 1,400 US dollars per month, and the package would include so the place I visited, they just had like a sort of landed property that was like single or 2 stories, and then they just had like a bunch of rooms, and there were around 10 to 20 residents, and you could either choose a single room or you could choose like a double or triple room, and you would basically get like all the meals catered, and you would get like people who are taking care of you throughout the day. Seemed quite nice. There were some very energetic elderly people there who was like running around. um yeah. Quite cute.
Well, that's actually very expensive.
Yeah,
I
right,
was
actually.
expecting, yeah, I was expecting a lower rate because it's Malaysia.
Yeah. But compared to Hong Kong, it's very good.
It's like cheaper
That's
than
true.
rent.
Yeah.
Yeah,
If you don't got a place to stay.
that's true.
Exactly.
Wow.
Mhm, mhm. So yeah, but Anki, we know that you want to stay in Hong Kong, but in case you want to ever consider.
Options are always welcome.
Yes.
Options.
Well, what did you do in the volunteering? Like,
Oh, we just helped them to clean up the place because they don't have enough manpower. So actually, the founders are ex-corporate people, so they were like ex-Google, Microsoft, Apple, like very, very cool people. But they only started this a few years ago, and they don't have a lot of manpower. So they just needed people to like clean up the garden and like hose down the driveway and things like that. We volunteered to talk to the old people as well, but they were like, it's okay. Like if once you start talking to them, they'll just sort of trap you and you can't leave. So yeah.
that's quite nice. Did you
Mm.
manage to make friends from that volunteering activity?
I went with a few colleagues, so then I met a few new colleagues that I haven't seen before.
Mm.
Mm. I think we mentioned in the retirement plan episode that Charmaine wanted to build an orphanage, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it feels like this is a good business template since you will be ex-corporate as well, and you'll be able to build something very meaningful. And I know that Flo also that you're interested in sort of things like that in the community and being a teacher. So potential collab coming up.
Good
Yay.
idea. But then for Anki, if you want to settle in Hong Kong, how does your Switzerland play into all of that?
Ooh, we're going there today. This is really a indulgent episode. Ooh, um, things are getting juicy as I'm trying to think of my answer. Um, I think I think I'm at that point in my life where um I spent the last 2 years planning everything, and I was pretty much in like a mental bubble where I was always like, oh, what's my next step? What do I want to do with my life? Who do I want to be? But I planned and I planned and I planned, and it all came back to this, and that I'm still in Hong Kong. None of my plans came to fruition. Not a bad thing, because I'm still in an unexpectedly good path that kind of still leads me to where I wanted to go, but in lots of ways that I didn't imagine. So I think overall, I've always wanted to be a sort of more techie person, and I was looking for so many ways to do that, like masters um, yeah, how I could build myself within the organization that I'm currently in to get there. And then somehow it feels like without much planning and some serendipity, it's moving in that direction. So I think now I haven't really and don't want to give it much thought about how it's going to work with Hong Kong and Switzerland. The good thing about my boyfriend is that he's very flexible, and he's quite okay to move wherever. Yeah, I think the question will come into play more when we're thinking about our finances, or if we're gonna have children in the future, like where they grow up, and yeah, how we're gonna pay this wonderfully high rent in Hong Kong. So yeah, I think that's later in the story. That's when I will consider more about where I want to move. But then for now, I think it's quite okay for me to stay and not go to Switzerland yet.
That's true. And these things can always change in a few years, like
Mm,
depending on where your job is, how, you feel about Hong Kong and how you feel about Switzerland.
yeah, maybe it could be in Malaysia.
Welcome.
Yay.
Yeah, I heard the schools are cheaper there.
They are, I think. Get your kids into some international schools.
Yeah, for same quality. Um, but yeah.
But if Hong Kong is not so expensive, I feel like it would have been the perfect city to live in. Like the beach is so close, the mountains are so close.
Mm.
I
I
don't
think
know.
I
What do
like
you
the
think?
I like the convenience of Hong Kong, but for some reason I always knew that I wouldn't want to stay in Hong Kong for that long. But I did enjoy the few years of staying in Hong Kong when I came back after like living overseas when I was younger. But I don't know what Anki, why do you think you want to stay in Hong Kong now? What changed?
I don't think it's so much that I want to stay in Hong Kong because of Hong Kong, but it's more like a challenge of personal development for myself, right? Where I really need to start growing roots and stop trying to go to other places, because if you grow roots, then you build a community, and then that's when you have a very strong network. I think I was getting to a point where I was like a bit lonely, and I didn't know why. And I think it's because all my friends are scattered across the world. Like you guys are in different countries as well now. My boyfriend's across the world, and then my family's here. So if I never settled down and started to build like a network for my own personal life per se, then I would be lonely forever. Do you know what I mean? So
Mhm.
it's been quite a difficult challenge, but it's I think it'll be quite rewarding. But I'm actually curious to hear for you guys, because Hong Kong is generally a very or has the impression that it's reputation that it's a very high stress society, right? And there's a lot of sort of societal standards and norms that people generally have to adhere to. So how does it compare to you and in Indonesia and Malaysia, where things seem a little bit more relaxed? And yeah, has that influenced the way that or the direction that you want to take your life?
Yeah, Charmaine, you can go first.
Mm, I think both Flo and I spoke about this, and that's Hong Kong because it's a more high stress, faster paced society. I think sometimes people can be a little bit less patient and it can come off as not caring. Although I have to like put a disclaimer and say that Hong Kong, I've seen the nice sides of it. Like, you know, when people are carrying really heavy things on a train, people will step in and help. So there are these moments like that when you see the warmth of Hong Kong, but it's just a lot more common in Malaysia so far, and it seems like to be the same for Indonesia. Mm, like an example would be I think I looked a little bit lost on the streets. I was like looking at Google Maps and wasn't sure if I was going the right direction, and I didn't even have to ask. And someone just came up to me and said, are you going to this mall? It's that way," and I didn't even have to ask. And there were other times when I was at the grocery store and I was wearing a pair of long pants, and then my pants got rolled into the trolley, and I couldn't take my pants out. And then someone, like a bunch of people came over to help without me asking.
Oh my god, that's so nice. But
Yeah.
also, how did that happen?
Yes. It happened twice. Like I unrolled it and then I walked a few steps and it rolled back again.
So
Yes.
funny.
So moments like that, I was like, oh, Malaysia's so warm. And it just sort of reinforced the feeling that I didn't want to live in Hong Kong. But I know it's different. I think being here as an expat versus being a local, because I think there's a lot of maybe discontent towards how the country operates. There is corruption, and there are policies that might not be, you know, fair and inclusive towards everyone. So I'm obviously seeing the good sides of it, but I think it's very different for a person who was born and raised here and have no choice but to be here, and I have the luxury of choice.
Mm.
Hmm. When I look back to my time in Hong Kong, I think most of my stress actually came from work. So now I'm just trying to like expand a little bit more and see when we say that Hong Kong is a stressful city or city, um, like what kind of stress or what are the different types of stress um, that are there, you know. So maybe one is like career, right? Work stress. And then maybe the other type of stress is like what Charmaine said, coming from like people around you, you know, just people like pressurizing you to keep going or like leave as soon as possible. Maybe those type of stress is also there. And then maybe the third type of stress is like stress about you know, feeding your family and just like providing for your family. So definitely like the third type of stress, which is like providing your family, we didn't experience that, right? Because we still don't have a family. And then the second one, I feel exactly the same as how Charmaine felt. So in Indonesia, people is a bit more friendly, and then they're not really in your way, so you just have like your own space, so that's actually quite nice. And then going back, like the first type of stress, career, I think I was very stressed in Hong Kong, but in Indonesia, I was also equally stressed, if not even more stressed. So I think it for like the first for work stress, it really depends on like where you work, the type of team you have or you get, right? And in Indo, I was very stressed that I lost 6 kg, and then I was quite underweight. But now that I've resigned and I'm on a break, I've gained back that 6 kg.
Yay. Much healthier. You glowing, girl.
Yeah, I see the light on your face. You look
Yeah.
Tanko, tanko.
Yeah. It always makes me happy to see Flo doing well because I think when we were living together at one point last year or the year before, like I think it was last year,
Yeah.
she got quite ill and you could just see that the light in her eyes was gone. Like if you look at her pupils, it's just like black. Do you know what I mean? And it was just really sad. And I think after she took a break at that time, immediately, and I wasn't the only one who told you this, right, Flo, that you could see like light in your eyes again and light reflecting off like her the water in her eyeballs, I guess, if you want to be scientific about it. um, so yeah, it's nice to see that you're in a good place. I think because it's quite evident and on your physical appearance as well.
Thank you. I think I
Mm.
wouldn't be here if I, haven't met both of you as well. Like everything that happened, even if it's difficult, even if it was stressful, those are the things that made us where we are today. So I'm thankful for everything that happened, all the challenges as well.
Gosh,
Yeah.
stop
We're,
it. You're gonna make me cry.
we're so excited for you and all that's coming your
Yeah.
way, Flo.
Thank you, thank
Woohoo.
you. Maybe on this topic as well. I was sharing with my team members because we're a bit more like friends now, right? There are three of us, and then there was one dinner where we really got like vulnerable and emotional with each other. We were just sharing all of our like personal difficulties, and then I realized that people who are tough at work, or maybe people who you feel like are not performing their best, they're already trying their best, so I don't know, I feel like um there is some lack of compassion around
Mm,
work culture and work um environment. Like we just keep pressurizing them to do their best and like do more, do more, do more, when actually like they're already trying their best and they have problems, let's say in their own personal life, they have problems with their family, they have problems
mm,
with their friends, they have problems with their health that we never see before, where we don't see, especially when we work from home, right? Everything is just like voice, you don't really know what's happening. And I don't know, I think this experience also taught me to be more compassionate in at work as well, just like
mm.
see them beyond like their
Yeah.
voice or their work, because everyone has their own life behind that. And sometimes we don't really think about them. Maybe when when they're not performing, maybe they need help, but they're just not telling you that they need help.
Mm. This when reminds me of a conversation I had yesterday
Oh,
with a good friend that you both know. And we actually spent a lot of time talking about this in terms of corporate values and also personal values. And it was very interesting because I think one of the things that we discussed is I think in Facebook, they actually give the top leaders like Sheryl Sandberg and Mark Zuckerberg big budgets to sort of manage their personal lives as well in different ways. So it could be bodyguards, it could be a certain type of benefit that I'm not too sure on. And because they understand that in order for their top executives to be functioning at their 100% or 300%, their personal lives need to be good and they need to be safe and healthy as well. So and when I talked about this friend, we were just talking about the lack of it that we've experienced and how much um, understanding the human condition is going to be conducive to productivity at work. Like, can you imagine that, for example, if someone broke up with their boyfriend or their girlfriend and they're just devastated, like they can't work socially, it's not going to be a good excuse to be like, oh, I'm sorry, I just can't work this week. But if your boss and your organization says to you, take a week off, how much loyalty that could generate with your employees, like that would change the game. And it's really systemic, right? Because also from the Asian boss girl episode, Helen, she's recently pregnant, and I think originally she only had 3 months of maternity leave. And Mel and Janet, the other two speakers, were like, hey, I think you look like you could take a month off. But Helen said she would never ask for it. It has to be the organization who offers it, because you at that position sometimes you never feel like you deserve it. So yeah, when you said compassion, that really stood out to me, and it's something that is quite interesting in the corporate context, right, and also our personal context. And it'll be interesting how we strike a balance between doing that and having compassion and also profitability. So hopefully we can sort of be the trailblazers for this type of model of work. Yeah.
Yeah. That'll be really nice. I think sometimes, like, I think at the beginning of this episode, Flo talked about how you were unwilling to maybe disclose your age sometimes, and having that boundary between sharing about your personal life and your personal details versus like to your colleagues. I think that's a hard line to draw sometimes, and it's going to blur. But sometimes being able to share a little bit more with your colleagues and your teammates, it helps to build a more understanding environment, I think. Yeah.
Mm, yeah. It's good that we're all on the same page so we can lead organizations in a healthy manner while
Yay.
performing. Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We thought we were going to have more different opinions this time, but apparently no.
Still
But
three peas in a pod.
yeah. But at the same time, it's good because then we're like, building on the same idea. We're like
Mm,
three brains building the same idea.
mm,
Through brain cells, yes.
agree.
Yeah.
Okay, then. Um, Now that, we've reflected on what has happened in the past year, maybe it's a good time to think about 1 year later. What are some goals you would want to set for yourself? And also just maybe looking back, what would you have told yourself from a year ago? So, two questions. What do you want to do in a year? What would you have told yourself a year before?
Maybe I can start. During COVID, we had fifth wave. During COVID, that was 2 years, not a very specific time span. During the last COVID outbreak, in Hong Kong, so the fifth wave, we had quite a sort of jump in cases. So I think very few people were leaving the house, very few people were going to work. And then so what I did was I went for a walk every single day after work, and I realized that I love to exercise, which is so new for me. I
Wow.
am still not exercising regularly, and I still don't want to wake up to exercise, but I I just know that I like it and I like the way it feels and it's really fun for me. Like I like group exercise particularly. Like I like playing beach volleyball. The one time I did it, it was very fun. I want to start boxing. So that's something that I would like to integrate into my life more in the next year. And then advice for myself, it's to not be afraid to meet more people. So recently when I say I'm building community, then I've been trying to meet more people and it's been quite natural and easier than I thought it would be. You just have to be quite gung ho and just offer your lunches to anyone who will take it. And more often than not, they do. So, and it usually ends up for being quite good conversation, and you learn a lot about yourself and how the world is actually very big. So sometimes I was struggling a lot on my career, and sometimes we had the question, oh, should you be a generalist? Should you be a specialist? Or how are you going to move forward in your career and which direction to go, or how you manage your work-life balance or your mental state and things like that. And um, I've been surprised at how many people have been able to give very productive inputs on this. And if only I spoke to more people earlier, then I wouldn't have been stuck in my own head trying to like scroll on Reddit or find different YouTube videos or like find out the answer and be lost, right? So I think knowing people is a really good source of opening your world. And so I wish I did that earlier. So hopefully I can do that more in the next year. And then yeah, I also think I would say like don't spend so much time planning for the future by yourself. Like as a nuclear being, there's no point in doing that if you're not looking externally as well. So introspection only goes so far because your world is only so big. So if you read more books again, meet more people, talk to your family, talk to other people, it helps a lot, I think. So that's the advice I would give myself. What about you, Flo?
That's a very good advice. I think it sounds like an advice I could definitely take as well. And I think for me, the way I see Anki is like you're sometimes you're the light in the room, you know? It's like if let's say if let's say you're not there, it would be a lot more boring. So maybe when you offer those lunches, you're actually offering that positivity to other people. So you're like offering good things to other people.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. I feel like give a lot of chaotic energy, but I was told recently to stop. That I'm actually not that chaotic, so I should stop um, going into this feedback cycle that I'm a chaotic person. So yes, I am the light. Yes.
Yes, you are the light.
Thank you. I will accept it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. For me, maybe the first question for this goals. I think maybe not goals, but like something that I wanna invest more time and effort to learning. Is about Buddhist teachings. I feel like 1 year ago I wouldn't have said this, but recently I went to a temple and then I learned more about like Buddhist teachings and I realized that even if I'm a Buddhist for my whole life, I don't really know about the teachings. Sometimes if I go to the temple, it's mostly just to ask for stuff. Like, can you please blah blah blah, and say get gratitude like thank you for the protection and guidance, but you know that it only goes so far. So I think maybe I want to dedicate a bit more time for to go to Sunday service in the temple and maybe like dedicate the Sundays for vegetarian day.
Ooh.
Mm. Yeah. uh, and I also want to maintain my health, so make sure that 1 year from now I'll still be healthy. Doesn't have to be like fit, as long as I'm healthy, then it's fine. And for the advice to my past self, hmm, mm, I think just don't be afraid to try new things, even if things will disappoint you in the future. It's fine. You learn from it, and also um, be more confident in yourself, and also um, when you receive advice, accept it selectively, see who the advice is from or the feedback is from. If let's say you don't respect the person, it's fine. You can just ignore them. And yeah, I think that's it. Mm,
From
yeah.
what you've shared today, Flo, I really get the feeling that your confidence level has been on the up up road, right? So what do you think has been something that has been very conducive to your confidence level growing?
Oh, I raised my eyebrow because I was surprised. Because actually, my previous manager kept emphasizing the fact that I lack confidence, and then she raised that to HR, saying that that's the number one thing that we need to build in Flow because she lacks confidence. I've also heard a lot of feedback from people that she lack confidence. So lack of confidence has always been the common theme in my previous role. And I felt like when you tell someone that they lack confidence over and over again without guiding them through the journey, it's not really helpful. It's
Mm,
just it's just um it's just like a continuous reminder that I lack confidence, and it doesn't help me in building my confidence at all. Like it doesn't serve any purpose. If
mm,
anything, and maybe it serves like a negative purpose.
mm,
So yeah. So I felt like during the previous role, I really felt like I wasn't confident. But so that's why I was very surprised when you said like, oh, your confidence, it seems like your confidence has gone up, when I felt like when people has been telling me that I lack confidence all like over and over again. So I think that was also when I realized that this is not the type of manager that I want to work with. I don't see her like developing me or growing me, and I feel like deep inside, even if I keep hearing that I lack confidence, I know that I'm actually competent and I can offer so much more. So maybe it's better if I go somewhere else and offer, what I have to people who is willing to take it and develop it further.
Yeah, that sucks that your previous manager said that because I think to a lot of people, always speak with so much composure and confidence. I think we would never think you're a not confident person. I think at most we might say that you're humble, and I think that's a really good quality. Think as a manager, maybe what they could have done is to actually told you what you could be confident about, like all your good qualities, instead of just saying you're not confident. That's not a very helpful advice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually a very good advice. She could
Yeah.
have been a bit more particular in what I wasn't confident in. Yeah.
And from what I know about you, right, Flo, and it's that you're like very data backed. So you always want to know everything about what you're talking about, or you want to know everything about the situation you're in before giving a very before giving an observation or giving an opinion. So I think perhaps it was that you just didn't have all the parts of the picture, and maybe you didn't feel comfortable. I don't know if that's a right interpretation. So it's interesting to me that your manager didn't try to find out why and how to align the resources to help you to make decisions in a way that will make you more comfortable. Hmm.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I think that's the right observation. I think she thinks that, if I don't have all the parts, then I'm less likely to voice out and escalate things, and she felt like that was a sign of lack of confidence. So I think like she has a very different definition of confidence with me, and we have, for some reason, we just like don't click. Our work styles are quite different. What she sees is successful is quite different as what I see as successful. And since we're also in this topic, we can cut it later if we if we think that it's not suitable or anything. But she also mentioned that you know, I was in the management trainee program, right? And for management trainees, she thinks that people who are hired into the management trainees are people who are willing to take risk and people who doesn't need to know everything to act and to lead immediately or take actions. And she sees that I am actually very different from all of the management trainees that she has previously worked for, and that's why she said that maybe HR could also evaluate what kind of candidates that they take in the future, because then the path is quite different and maybe the path wouldn't suit the candidate selected. And she said that looking at how you are as a person or as a professional, it seems that um, you prefer to be an expert in one thing instead of a generalist, and that is totally fine. It's not wrong at all. But if you are more, if you prefer that kind of work environment and that kind of path in your career, you need to make peace with the fact that it's going to take longer for you to reach a leadership role compared to someone who is more willing to be a generalist and to get a bit of everything and lead straight away. And I told her, yeah, I think that actually sounds okay with me. I'm totally fine with that career path. I'm not rushing to be a manager before 30. I'm not rushing to be a head in something before 30. I think if anything, it's going to be a lot more fulfilling for me knowing that I deserve the position, the leadership position, even if it's going to take longer. And she said, if that works for you, then maybe that's the better path for you. So those are just some of the conversations I had with my manager. So I think it shows that like she has different expectations of management trainees, and she also has different views on what leadership is like and what success is like.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to unpackage there for sure. And when you shared that, it created a lot of thoughts for me about like what the paths to success, quote unquote, are, and what management trainees generally are told that the path to success is, and actually how many different cases that are not like that exist in the world, and how those people are also doing very well. So it's, yeah, I think that's a really big topic, and potentially another episode for another day.
Yeah. But it takes
Mm,
maturity to like say that, you don't want to go on this path anymore and you know what you're more suited towards.
mm,
So we're very proud of you, Flo.
Thank you.
yeah. All right. And for Charmaine, what would your answer be to our question?
Um, in terms of the goals, I think so mine would be health related as well. Just in terms of building healthier health habits. So in the past year, something I've tried to do is to really mark down my habits and be consistent about what I do. I think after reading Atomic Habits, my key takeaway is consistency, even though it's just doing a little bit every day. So I the past few months, my habit was to read the news every day, and because I can see visually, like I mark down when I read the news each day, I visually, when I can see the streak that I've been able to maintain, that will force myself to keep doing it every day. So I want to try that for healthy habits, like doing even just 5 minutes of exercise every day, or like maybe like meeting more people every month or something like that. So those are just some goals I have in the next year. In terms of advice I would give to my previous self, I think it's about having visibility both at work or maybe even in your personal life. Because I think at work sometimes just it helps to be someone who's louder or just be able to be a bit more rah-rah about what you've done. And I think that's not something I'm naturally able to do, but I'm trying to push myself towards. So even just like raising a question in a town hall, or like even in a meeting when everyone doesn't want to say anything, you're trying to be the first one to speak up, then I think that helps to build visibility and credibility.
Mm,
And in the personal life aspect, I mean, previously, you guys know I never post to Instagram. And I think I've started to do that just because now that I'm in a different country, I just want to let my friends know that I'm safe and I'm alive. But I think that's one way of staying visible in your personal life too. So
yeah.
that's my goal, visibility. So yeah.
Yeah. We very much appreciate the Instagram post. It also helps to successfully ensure us that you are indeed alive and enjoying life.
Yay.
Yeah,
So,
it's actually really nice to see your stories.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I
It's
should
mostly
post more.
okay. I guess that's sort of it for our
Yeah.
catch up today.
So
How was it?
it was eye-opening, and I think it was an interesting episode for us to record. I don't know how it's gonna be for our viewers to listen to all 1 hour, and I don't know how long, almost an hour of it. And so, but I think we've been able to delve into deeper topics, much deeper. Deeper is much topic. Topics much deeper beyond what we usually share, and really think about the implications of that. It seems like even though we've been keeping in touch, there was a lot of inner workings of each other's life that we didn't touch on or we didn't discuss. So it's been great, and I'm very grateful to have this opportunity to hear about you guys' life in a more structured setting.
Yeah. If anything, I really want both of you to succeed, and it's so nice to see how both of you have grown in this period. Even if maybe we don't catch up that often, it's so nice to see that all of us are doing well. And then it feels like nothing has changed, right? Like when we record this, it still feels like 2 years ago when we did the recording. The
Mm.
recording, so that's really nice.
Yeah. And when we listen back to this again in 2 years, I'm sure so much would have changed again and we would have grown so much again.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, guys, to our listeners, we're not going to establish a frequency for recording this, but probably given that we do have a lot to talk about and that we're growing so quickly in terms of human beings, that maybe we'll record some ad hoc episodes, right, everyone?
Yes.
So, yeah,
I think at first Ankie suggested biannual, and I thought that meant once every 2 years. But I think now I know it means
both ways, right?
twice a year.
Mm.
But that's not a commitment either way. We're
No.
not committing to anything.
No,
Yeah,
no.
we're very flexible people and we'll play by ear.
Ugh.
Ooh,
Ooh.
way too corporate jargon, that one. Very good.
All right. So if there's anyone you haven't reached out to in a while, maybe this is your sign to reach out to them.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. See you in the next episodes, if there are going to be any. Bye.
Bye.